Just ignore. I don't want to hear how long will it
All right, what's going on, y'all? Again, we are here, ShadowCast 47. I have with me Mr. Jay Fleming from Winging It Podcast. How you doing this evening?
Doing all right. How's everybody doing out there in lovely YouTube, Twitch, wherever land you're watching it at?
Well, So I'm glad you mentioned that. I had to do a lot of redoing, but I am also on Twitch now. I'll eventually add that to the little banner down here at the bottom, the Chiron, whatever you want to call it. But no, we're here and we're gonna talk some stuff here. This is actually, I plan on doing a video for this. I actually had to clean up some stuff because I plan on trying to do a video on the specific topic, but it's a little bit easier to just kind of like look at the data and kind of compare it yourself more than anything else. So just real quick, obviously the title of the video you can clearly see: do consoles need SSDs? We already have the answer to that question if you look at past consoles, but I don't even want to go there yet, man. What games you been gaming, man? We'll just go on that first, and then I'll.
Let's see. I did live stream a little bit of The Last Story, which for somebody that helped out with the Final Fantasy series, he really did mean that was going to be the last one because they're not remaking it.
Just leaving that game there. Okay.
I mean, it's one of those Operation Rainfall games that I think to me was better than the other two.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I know people going to say sacrilege because of Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm sorry, I thought Last Story was better.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. I don't know how to explain where people want to. Well, people ask for things sometimes, and they're like, "Well, do you really want this?" If it comes kind of situation, but in that game is stranded for sure.
Yeah,
so
that game, and I did last night. I live streamed Star Fox Zero for hashtag I Got Mine, and those two games, those are like two of the games that I'm like, you know what, if it was me, I would probably try to bring those over.
Yeah, I think those should come too.
I'm not going to try to bring over something like Xenoblade Chronicles X because, like I've said multiple times before, what are you going to do to supplement that gamepad? And before anybody say anything, no, you're not going to want to have to hit. You're going to do a lot of start and stop, and you're not going to want to do that. And if you're complaining about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 HUD,
yep, good luck because it's about to get way bigger.
Yeah, so if you're complaining about that, stop saying you want Xenoblade Chronicles X on Switch. Just stop if you're complaining about that. But yeah, Star Fox Zero, I know me and Jack were talking about that last night. Like, that was one I didn't understand. I understand what Nintendo was going for and what Platinum was trying to do. I just didn't understand out of all the games that had multiple control schemes, why that one didn't.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. I'm like, because I think people would have been fine with it had they gave the Pro Controller support. Now the thing is, I've never liked the Wii U Pro Controller, to be honest. I just don't like the button placement on it. I like the Switch one, the
analog stick.
Yeah. I didn't like that placement. So that's just me. So
you might be one of the few Nintendo gamers that can admit that. Like I was fine either way. It's just other people that they don't want to, because it's a Nintendo specific thing. They don't want to hold the L and say they don't like it and they prefer that. It's okay to admit that Xbox picked something that was kind of right. Well, actually, everybody picked it right because GameCube was like that too.
Yeah, GameCube did it first. Here's the thing. Anybody that says that, then why did they give you GameCube controller support on the Wii U?
That's why you wanted it. I rest my case. So it's just one of the things, man. I've already said I'm still partial to the Wii U Pro controller because namely because of the battery life more than anything else.
Oh yeah,
and I think
you ain't beating 80 hours.
I think it was easier for me to transition because I played so much of like GoldenEye and some other games on the Wii Pro controller. That had the analog sticks were actually kind of like at the bottom, kind of like how the Dual Shock was. So once they moved to the top and it spread out a little bit more, I'm like, this isn't that much of a difference kind of situation. Now, if you are playing a shooter, I can see how it could be a little bit different, especially if you're used to playing Call of Duty or Halo elsewhere. I could see how that could be. Getting to your face buttons with the analog stick kind of right in the way doesn't help too much. So
once you have that Wii Remote and Chuck,
yeah,
FPS, you ain't gonna ever go back.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Once you spoil by that, it really don't matter what what you have after that. So, but yeah, we'll go ahead and well, I guess I can talk about some of what I've been gaming, but you know what it is. It's Shin Megami Tensei 5. And so this is the part of the game where everything kind of opens up and it's like you can kind of choose your own adventure type situation where it's like, hey, you're pretty strong. And you can pretty much end this game right now if you want to. However, there's a whole bunch of optional stuff that you're not strong enough for yet. You might want to go play around a little bit more before you dabble in. It's that Xenoblade thing where it's just like, hey, remember that thing that kind of smoked you at the beginning? Like, go try and see if you can go get them now.
Oh, you mean the giant ape?
Man,
the giant level 81 ape that's always there for some reason.
Yeah, so they kind of did pretty good with that. So I'm kind of like still feeling my way around it, and I'm doing the whole thing I did with Zelda. I don't want this to end, so I'm gonna keep on finding everything that I can try to find before I go to the end boss or whatever. There's a optional character you don't have to add to your party, but you can go back and do this really long quest and then add them to your party, and they're literal overkill. So I'm gonna attempt that. The only reason I even decided to Google this was because they hinted at it in another side quest, and I was like, maybe I should go try to get her. That's the only hint I'm gonna give because I don't want to spoil this game. It's actually recently new. November I think is when it came out. Was it November or was it December?
December, I think. I think it was December.
December maybe.
It wasn't at the Game Awards.
Yeah, so it's a fairly recent game, so a lot of people probably haven't played it, considering how many games have been out for Switch recently. So
I don't think anybody would like. That's why I'm trying to be careful about the whole spoiler situation because I know how people get about spoilers and stuff, but I can't even get mad nowadays. So I'm like, bruh, everybody can afford everything that's coming out right now.
Yep, for sure.
Everybody can, and we about to get summer finna be crazy.
Yep. So Dark Angel asked what difficulty I was playing Shin Megami Tensei 5 on. I'm playing on normal. I'm not playing on anything harder than that because I haven't played Shin Megami Tensei since I want to say 2. So I'm not familiar with.
Plus,
there were so many gameplay things that have been added since then that I wasn't familiar with, and I didn't want to get drugged immediately.
Well, here's the thing: like if you plus the other thing too is if you're just trying to play just to play, do you really want to kill yourself in that game? No.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we got a lot of comments here. Charles Trudell, I don't know how to say that, said thank you for the podcast. I guess he's talking about the topic, depends on the type of game. And game idea guys in the chat. Yes, I know what the answer is going to be. We'll go through it, and it'll be a long little thing. Got Trinell in the chat. What's going on? And I feel like I just need to leave this on here because you've exposed yourself. Get that game and get that console. Like, we need to do this. Brand Smith says bamboozled, led astray. LOL. I'm guessing that's dealing with the topic, but yeah, possibly. You could indeed have 64 gigs around. Yeah, we'll talk about that in detail in just a minute here. So, yeah, and there's some other stuff here as well. They're going back and forth about it, but we'll.
Because I'm trying to think because here's the thing about the storage situation. The main problem is I'm not gonna say everybody because I have been one of those people that been like, dude, we don't need to be talking about no 4 and 8K stuff when I'm getting emails from Ubisoft and Square Enix talking about, if you want to play on 4K, you gotta you can't play on high setting on ultra setting. You have to put it at 30 frames a second. But wasn't the whole thing that y'all kept plastering in everybody's face was 4K 60? Just like back in what it was 7 gen, it's 1080 60, and nobody hardly ever hit it.
Yep.
I'm like, so once you start the higher the resolution, the bigger these file sizes gonna get. And I'm sorry, a lot of people ain't gonna pay no $1,000 for no console. With adequate space. Like they're not gonna do it.
The closest I would get would be Steam Deck, and that will only be because of it's also literally a PC. And I'm gonna do PC things with it. I'm not just gonna be playing games on it. So that'd be the only reason. Other than that, and legacy reasons, Neo Geo, $700-800 for those systems back then. But you're talking about literally you could take the arcade cartridge and put it in that system and play it. So it's a lot cheaper than buying a $5,000 arcade machine. So when you think about what it wasn't that bad. But what's up, Jack Gates in the chat as well. Wilton99 saying what's up. Morning, I guess, his side. And we got Sandstorm in the house. So he's talking about me doing Shin Megami Tensei. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know whether to take this as a compliment or not from Ray, but we'll go from there. So yeah, the main topic here we'll go with Mario Monato's in here too. Said what's up. Okay, so appreciate y'all leaving comments in. Y'all keep discussion up. We'll go from there. And that comment there, I think that pretty much is telling for the majority of what we're going to be talking about here. But more specifically, the whole goal of the SSD was for the infinite speed that Mark Cerny was talking about. And so what I want to address here is just a little bit of an issue with that. And we talked about this, or I believe it was the Winging It podcast, and Terminator Juice was on that as well. I should have invited him on here. But generally speaking, what we're looking at here, we're looking at this screen here, if I can get this up here. So what you're looking at, these are the speeds that you're going to see for PCIe. These are, and we're not even talking about the drives themselves. The drives themselves are actually a little bit slower than what the max read and write speeds are for these buses. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's actually half speed for Xbox Series X. They did that for a reason, because their memory controller is very special and it does different things. But so you're talking about here at a theoretical maximum writing around 4,000 megabytes per second, or 4 gigs per second, and around 5,000 read, which is about 5 gigs per second for PCIe 4. Now, that being said, both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X have half the lanes for this PCI Express protocol. So instead of having 4 pins, they only have 2. And I believe that's because they wanted to make sure that they were never saturated at any point in time. And the other 2 pins are for connectivity and redundancy. So that essentially means that you're only really ever getting more, about half of this bandwidth, definitely on the right side at any given time. Now, what the interesting thing is that as expensive as these drives are, even going down to PCIe 2.0, yes, it's a great benefit over I think it's like 500 megabytes per second max read, right, for the fastest spindle 15K drive that you would get like in a data center type situation. But here's the problem. You already have something, and if you're talking about a console that's a closed system, you were already using something that was significantly faster. We're talking about DDR2 being 4.2 to 6.4 gigabytes per second. DDR2 chips are significantly cheap right now. Significantly cheap. And the voltage is nominal, or at least lower, significantly lower than you would for an entire drive, NVMe drive spinning for that same amount of speed. So instead of, and I guess that's the theory here, I don't know how else to do this other than create a giant PowerPoint, but what you would do for your memory hierarchy is you would have your main RAM that would say be DDR4, DDR5, LP, DDR5, or whatever, right? That's where all your data would sit. Then for your how can I say this? You have like your main memory pool, right? Which would be, say for the example, say we rebuilt Switch, right? It's got 4 gigs of LP DDR4. You have that, right? Then you want an SSD because you want to speed up loads or whatever. Instead of having that SSD to speed up loads, you could have a small SODIMM DDR2 module sitting there as well as a fast cache. Obviously, the trade-off would be, hey, this fast cache only works while the applications are still running or while the system's still on. Once you turn the system off, that data isn't there anymore. The entire purpose of this is to make the games faster and to make loading applications faster. If you bought a new game or whatever, you got your NAND flash or whatever, it's slowly copying to the DDR at one point, then it dumps from the DDR to main memory, and then you can install a lot faster than you would just dumping and converting and stripping from the NAND flash directly to your LP DDR4. So it's a little bit strange to explain, but the main gist is you've got a technology that's several years old at this point. I can't think of any hardware that currently exists today that still uses DDR2. But it's still already faster than most SSDs you can buy today. The most common SSD is still around 2 gigabytes per second read and write speed, especially synchronous anyway. If you got synchronous one way or you want sequential write, you're going to be around 2 gigabytes per second sequential write. Versus this little piece of memory right here that does what you need to do at a significantly cheaper price. DDR2 is significantly old. Now you have DDR3 over here, which essentially doubles that same bandwidth, and your 8 nanosecond prefetch or whatever that you need for that same type of speed, which is still going to be faster than an SSD. And that's DDR3 we're talking about. This is what was in the Wii U. So you could essentially go from what Wii U was doing, or even faster if you use just pure EDRAM, and then your VRAM for whatever your new DDR implementation is going to be, whether it's GDDR5 or GDDR6, and you wouldn't even need an SSD. So essentially what it would be is it would be a RAM disk. And I don't know if anybody, I kind of linked that article before. I don't know if I have it up now, but I linked the article before regarding how that works. So essentially, how a RAM disk works for you, and that's kind of the. So I mean, I can actually just pull up this image here, but you can kind of see if I can get it to go full screen here. Let's see what we got. Oh no, it won't let me do it. So I got to pull all the way down here. But you can essentially see the gist of what they're trying to tell you right here. So these will be your differences right here. So you've got here, and you can notice the difference. You got your SSD over here, which this is an older SSD, obviously, if you look at the read and write speeds here. Look at the RAM disk difference here. And we're talking, obviously, it's significantly faster at this point. And it's just an extra pool of RAM that you have sitting around. Why, with it being cheaper, because you're talking about a console, so it's going to be soldered onto your motherboard, just like all the other memory is on your motherboard. It's just another memory pool. So it's just going to be a segmented memory subsystem where you can pool data. Why this isn't suggested versus, hey, let's just have SSDs. I can only think of one possible solution, and that's integration. If they're designing a system for this, This is one of the slowest SSD speeds, but you saw how slow actual hard drive read speeds were at one point. They were significantly slower, even over SATA, like just really, really slow. But if you're going from instead of using a segmented pool of RAM and you're using an SSD, now your game engine can work everywhere, including PC, the thing they typically use to develop these games on. So it appears to be this is more of a move to be everywhere all at once, rather than making the most compact, more high performance experience for a specialized console. Because if it's a console and that's the only thing that it's doing, why wouldn't you make it the fastest, more efficient? Basically, in this, for all intents and purposes, it's hardware for one application. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want it to be specialized at this point?
So you should.
Yeah, you should. But it appears here that we're just looking for some type of homogeny across all platforms to go from there. And that might be, obviously I'm not gonna assume, but that looks like that's the most likely reason why. And all you have to do is look at what the other platforms are doing, and they magically get ports to PC pretty quick as well. Yeah. So, and that's not to say that, these games can't be on PC if you didn't have an SSD. We're just saying that if there was a fast memory pool, or if all PS5 games ran directly off a disk and loaded directly into GDDR6, it'll be a little bit difficult for a game built specifically for PS5 to then be ported to PCs, where you've got guys that have hard drives they have their games loaded on, or they don't have a GPU that's GDDR6 at all, like nowhere near that type of speed. And their memory isn't going to be that fast either, because you're talking about just regular DDR versus GDDR at that point. So the bandwidth is nowhere near that fast unless you've already got a DDR5 system, which is a little bit ahead of the curve. So when you're thinking about maximizing your footprint and having your games go everywhere, you can have that giant user base for PC anytime you develop a game for any one of the other two platforms. And I think that's what we're getting on here. And Nintendo is obviously going to be the last man out with regards to that, because they always do bespoke hardware, even though the Nintendo Switch is probably the least bespoke piece of hardware they've ever built. It's literally a Tegra tablet. They only customize the firmware and stuff like that to make sure they don't want any baddies in, and if baddies do get in, they get bricked. So other than that, that's a pretty close. That's about as close as you can get with regard to that. So it's just strange, but that was the gist of what I was getting going from that. But you're talking about all this hoopla over wanting 4 to 8 gigabytes per second read, so you can load game worlds faster and whatnot. And I'm like, DDR3 already does that, and it's older, and you can solder it on the board, and there's your game world. Or just have more main RAM. And that's the other thing as well. You're like, hey, we're used to developing this game within 16 gigs of RAM or whatever. Okay, then put 24 in there, and that other 8 gigs of RAM, what have you, will get you what you need.
Well, here's my only problem with that, because and I think I said this not last week, but a week before on the podcast. At some point, game developers are going to have to tone down their ambition, because they keep shooting for stuff that can't be done, claiming that power is the issue when power ain't the issue. It's your design.
Yeah.
Your design is horrible for what you're trying to do.
That's and that's part of the case of where Wii U never got realized, and not hashtag Wii U again, I guess. But
it was trending earlier today.
It was to the point where it is, and I have people questioning me. It's not trending. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah,
okay,
all right, cool. So it's one of those situations where you had developers shying away from even using the ESRAM on the Xbox One, because the whole goal is to move more towards, homogeny with PC. And if you do something bespoke like that, and you're like, hey, let's design a game around using this ESRAM really, really good, and you're like, you send over there looking, there's another system with 32 megs of really fast RAM as well. Are you gonna do anything? No, we just can't. Oh, okay. I mean, but it was kind of custom designed so you could use it that way, to the point where any of the limitations of like the very, very long instruction word process, that entire thing gets skipped because they put certain pieces in certain places, so you don't have to deal with the limitations of the older Radeon hardware, and how it kind of did wavefronts or whatnot. So if you wanted to set up code for a certain wavefront, you had to wait on the SP to finish a task. Well, you may not have to wait if it can tell that SP to continue running while it's waiting on another SP. And if you don't have to use all these SPs to do certain tasks, because other stuff is done in the hardware. There's, like I mentioned, there's interpolation units on this system that do very specific things that we will otherwise need extra shader hardware for. Specifically on Wii U, because that's basically how it was designed. They knew the limitations of what AMD had for Radeon, and they worked around it to make a good game environment for them. You got to understand, when Nintendo's building hardware, they're building a hardware to where games are easier to develop from their mindset. They're building a platform and a software development kit for them. And if they finalize it and they ship it, at some point they found a happy medium where they can say, hey, look, what we have here, we've got a really good timetable on how to make things go. If it had a whole bunch of hurdles to get stuff up and running, they wouldn't have shipped it.
Nope.
So, and we over here, oh wait, we can't get this running, we can't get that running. Oh, okay. What was Nintendo doing? And I understand, yes, that was definitely Nintendo's fault going up front. The communication was bad at the beginning. Information was scarce and scant, and even if you had the information, you had an NDA signed to where you couldn't even share it with other developers then at the time. That's fine, well and good. We can admit that that's a flaw on their end. They shouldn't have done that. But at the same point in time, you can't complain, or it would have been your issue why you didn't reverse engineer and do what you needed to do, if the thing that you were struggling with that you couldn't do, Nintendo shipped a game that does it.
Well, the other thing too is you got to remember, there was, our favorite senior engineer from EA that was never mentioned.
Yeah, he never made a game. Not on Nintendo hardware anyway.
But he was always chirping. And then you'd have like Harada from Tekken, you'd have Inaba, you'd have cats from Capcom. Like, nah, it's actually not hard to work with.
Yeah,
it's actually really easy to work with.
Well, once you wrap your head around why they did what they did, a lot of it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I really, it's just strange to me that, it's not strange because everybody can see now, right?
Yeah.
If you thought that at some point, first of all, Mark certainly told you from the beginning. Do I really need to pull up the video? I feel like
you really don't, because the people, because even when that video, because remember, because we did that whole reaction, and the people that they didn't understand, that was not for Sony, that was for developers. That was a demo for developers.
You're like, do what we do.
What he was talking about. So the thing is, he was being open and honest, and people were mad about it. And I'm like, he's telling y'all what the system was going to be.
He's just telling y'all, look, make segmented game design. We want you. We told you how it's better now, because old hard drives, they have seek times that have errors, and you can't just keep copying sectors of data everywhere because it'll kill those drives. And now we have this SSD, so that's not an issue anymore, other than trim and stuff like that. But also, we've increased the speed significantly. So those things that you were doing on the old hard drives to spool or whatever, that stuff almost happens instantly with an SSD. However, if you decide to build games with this new speed in mind, you still have to go back to your fundamentals and start streaming stuff the same way you did with the slower hard drives, because these SSDs are nowhere near as fast as GDDR6 is. It's just not a thing. Your RAM is always going to be faster than your drive. So you will have to figure out a way to schedule your everything to load into RAM. And I think that's one of the things where once you find out that the memory subsystem itself wasn't really trying to sub data that fast, then you start finding, hey, I can buy this off-brand SSD that's only 2 gigabytes per second, and I still get faster load times in some games. Gee, it's almost like the SSD wasn't it. It was the memory, and it basically having double the memory to begin with, and the memory subsystem. So it's just that should tell you, if you didn't listen to what Mark Cerny said for understanding back then about how it's supposed to be the pipeline of how you manage how your game is going to stream data, then you definitely should see now with people, there are videos of people literally just replacing the drive with slower drives, and they still get equal or faster load times, which sounds insane, but it makes sense if you understand that it's the memory subsystem and not the drive itself that's doing the majority of the work. So if you have an SSD that has less data to poll, like say one side of the drive is completely blank because it has half the amount of modules on it, then it's a lot easier for the memory subsystem to total all that stuff up and move data across. So you probably actually get faster performance from having less storage. So it's just one of those things where I don't know how else to explain it, but that's pretty much the gist of it. I wanted to kind of give a little bit more detail, but pretty much this picture explains it all. It's just, it really is pretty much the telltale of it all right there. So that's all you need to know. And that's just that's just one example of back in the day, showing the difference between a RAM disk SSD and a hard drive then at that point. So now you're at the point where, is your RAM even fast enough to keep up with the RAM disk? So I don't know. If that's the case, what's to stop a PS6 or whoever, and they actually don't care about, hey, if we make this, we got to make sure that it's also available on PC because we don't know how well it's going to sell on our platform. If that wasn't a worry, they could literally just say, hey, our new system will have 32 gigs of total memory or what have you, and we'll have an additional pool of GDDR5 sitting somewhere or whatever to stage and move all around. And PC gamers will just have to deal with it, because at that point the only way for you to match those kind of speeds is to have two GPUs, because that's the only way you're going to get GDDR5 on your system, or really fast DDR5 then at the time, because we're talking PS6, we're talking another 8 to 9 years. So I mean, it's a potential that you could ignore PC and make a bespoke system, and it'll be every bit as fast or faster than a top of the line system, because the memory subsystem would be superior.
Well, the way things are going now, you're gonna have to have a 10 gigabyte hard drive just to gonna play some of these games.
Oh yeah, because obviously if you're gonna do bigger games, then it's gonna be bigger storage. And then obviously compression and decompression on the fly. You probably have to create a new compressor and decompressor as well.
Well, at this point, I just think they need to across the board be like, look, instead of trying to cap and be like, oh well, we can't have external storage. Yeah, you're just gonna have to let people be able to hook up an external hard drive.
Yep.
Instead of trying to be like, no, you can't do it. No, you're gonna have to, because if you keep putting your PR people out there to say, oh, we can do 8K.
Yeah, you can play 8K Blu-ray.
That's about it.
You can play 8K. You can play 8K Blu-ray. That video playback would be great.
That's the one thing that killed me, because I remember when Stadia first said that, when they kept saying, "Oh, we can get up to 8K visual." I'm like, ain't no 8K TVs. Why y'all saying that?
Yeah, there's some luxury sets out there, but there's no reason.
But the average household is not going to have that.
By the time they start selling them, 16K would be available.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, dude, and to be fair, it kind of already is because of the Cowboy Stadium and MetLife Stadium and SoFi Stadium. It kind of already is, but those are exceptions, and those screens are freaking ridiculous. Like, I've been to MetLife; those 4 screens are huge, but that's why it's like that, because they're not putting that on a 50 on your 75-inch screen that you just got at Walmart on Black Friday.
Yep.
That's going on like a 200-foot screen, 300-foot screen, 800-foot screen.
Yeah, it's that technology, and that's the other thing with like the old school Xeon drives, the plasma screens. They used to be in all those stadiums too, but that's literally toxic to your health.
Yeah,
kind of display.
They wound up having to change them, like what it was, every 3 games, because it kept burning out. Yeah, so they wound up having to change it. That's why they went to OLED.
Yep.
But yeah, like if you go to Cowboy Stadium, if you go to MetLife, if you go to I know SoFi has a big one too. Those are 3 that I know have. I don't know how. No, I've never been to Mercedes-Benz one in Atlanta, so I don't know how those are. But I know those 3. Those screens are huge. I'm pretty sure those are 8K and up.
Yep.
But the average home, the average gamer ain't gonna have that, because 1, they can't afford it, and 2, ain't got no place to put it.
Yep.
So constantly saying 8K this and 8K that and 4K this and 4K that, when you know good and well you don't have the storage for that. And perfect example. You know that game Everwild that Microsoft had a trailer for like 2 years ago at E3.
Yeah, and it wasn't a game yet.
And Rare didn't even know what the game was going to be, and they messed around and said
it. That's what happens. I mean, at least when they said it about Smash Brothers, like, we knew it was going to be like, you already had a Smash Brothers.
Yeah, you knew what it was good. Like, if you, my thing is, why are you putting out a trailer for a game that even the people working on it don't know what it is?
And nobody's ever seen this game before. It's not a sequel to anything existing or anything. So we don't even have a gist of, is this going to be real? Like, so, we don't even have a working framework.
Of course, when stuff hit the fan and the director leaves and this art person leaves, and now everybody like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen to this game. The game you should have never heard about it.
Yep.
Should have never heard about it, to be fair. So,
so Andre posted a question here. So I'm not exactly sure what he's posing here when he says just light years faster. I hope if you say light years faster, you're talking about the eDRAM. Because 170 gigabytes per second, and that's the lowest estimate for both of these technologies, is significantly faster than DDR2. Talking, close to 100 times faster for those systems specifically. That's the other thing too. If you didn't use eDRAM well in Wii U, there was no point in you even porting a game, because like, why would you? Like, if you can fit the majority of stuff inside of this right here, you don't have to wait for anything, because this is way faster than any SSD will be in the future. Yeah. Like, going forward, you need to multiply that times, like, you're going like 8 times faster.
Unless IBM or Apple or somebody comes up with something else, which can happen. It can happen, but as of now, no, ain't nothing faster than that. No.
Yeah, just a glance, and it's going to be a bunch of other than the ESRAM and the Xbox One. There's still a bunch of gambling going on, trying to figure out how fast the bandwidth is for the eDRAM and the Wii U. So the theoretical bandwidth for the SRAM in the Xbox One is 218 gigabytes per second. So I'm guessing around 170 usable. But you're talking about 218 gigabytes per second. That is literally 10 times a PCIe 2 NVMe SSD. So like literally 100 times faster, which doesn't make any sense. Like that's not even a comparison. So if you use that small pool of EDRAM to cache, install games, or use as a fast cache in a game, that versus an SSD is a night and day difference. So that's kind of more of what we're getting at here when we talk about stuff like this. And then the same thing for the EDRAM was rumored to be anywhere between 170 to 500 gigabytes per second. So depending on who you believe at this point, I know at one point they were saying it would be like 1,000 gigabytes per second. There's no way that Nintendo would spend that kind of money. So I wouldn't believe that.
They wouldn't do that because the thing about Nintendo has always been make sure they're cost effective for people. They're not gonna, and on top of it, to be completely fair, Sony and Microsoft wouldn't do it either because they wouldn't make no money.
Yep.
They just wouldn't make no money because people be like, hell no, I'm not paying for that. It'll be the Wii all over again because that's what happened with the Wii. The Wii came out, it was cheaper. People were like, we in a recession. I ain't spending no $500 for no $500 and $600 for no system. I'll get this little $299.
Yep.
And it came with a game.
And
it came with the most addictive game of all time, Wii Sports.
Yep. Like Cinema Blend said that it was up to 563 gigabytes per second. I think that's a little on the high side too. I'm thinking it's anywhere between 250 to 300 gigabytes per second. Just realistically speaking. Cinema Blend, when they did their article talking about the Wii U EDRAM, and it may just be the effective bandwidth for everything that's there, because you're also counting the SRAM as well that's there, because there's 2 additional SRAM banks there that emulate Wii mode as well. And so they just made it pure SRAM instead of making that EDRAM, because that was EDRAM on the GameCube and Wii. But they just went ahead and made it all pure SRAM. So it may be a combination of all that bandwidth together that gets you up to 563 gigabytes per second. But I think the 32 megs of EDRAM, which is the largest part of the Latte chipset. And I guess I can show that image as well so people know what we're talking about here. That's probably the easiest. Let's see what we got here. That's probably the easiest image I could probably pull up so you guys can see what we're talking about here. And as an image, let's see if it shows up. No, it's not gonna show up. I'll just copy it. I really, really, really hate this, but whatever. Let's see. There we go. So I think it's there. No, because Google's horrible. But I'll just show this here so you guys can see just a little bit here. But this is the biggest part of the chipset. If you do any of these little Google searches, you can see yourself. But this is the biggest part of the chipset here. This is MEM1 as described by all the data dumps and whatnot. And you can see this is the first memory address is all A0s. And you got all your banks here. And this is MEM1. This gets you your full 32 megs. You got pure SRAM here and here for MEM0 and MEM0 section 2, I guess. and it's the 08080000, I guess,
I
at this
hate when
point.
they use font that you can't see.
Yeah, but these are all address spaces.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird because it won't let me make this a separate image for whatever dumb reason because of Google and whatever. But yeah, this whole little space here, this takes up the majority of the GPU. Like all the shaders and stuff are over here. And then there's a whole bunch of unknown stuff that's up in this corner over here, and these are the TMUs up top. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff down here that various purposes. But yeah, there's this entire chipset. This is the hugest part of it, and obviously for a reason. They wanted it to be fast, and that's the majority of what the GPU is going to be built around, which means a lot of things that if this was just a regular Brazos GPU or any other AMD GPU then at the time, all the work would happen here, and it would push data up here, and then it would page everything to VRAM, which would be sitting over here somewhere, and then waiting on main memory to send stuff back. But you've got this little scratch pad that's right on the edge right here. That's a direct interconnect to the GPU, and it interfaces out to the CPU as well. So you could have this if you wanted to, have 16 megs of fast cache for the GPU to be writing and 16 megs of the CPU to be writing to at any point in time as well. This acted as an L3 cache. So you could do two things at once if you wanted to for here. This is just anyway, but this would be another Wii U podcast. But if you think about the reason why the memory was segmented this way, they all had different purposes. If you wanted to, you could build a game like a Wii U game, and you can have all your texture cache and all your pixel data and all that kind of stuff. You want to build your frame buffer, you can build it here. And you can have all your frame buffer and texture cache all up in this area here. You can build your game within 10 megs if you wanted to, if you want to make it just 720p or whatever, and then just shove everything through there and do your display, and instead of worrying about having to deal with all this extra stuff and bring back from here, because there's other logic here that's emulating what the Wii was back then. But you could effectively make a 720p Wii game if you wanted to with the logic that's here currently. So there was nothing stopping that if you wanted to. And it would probably be insanely fast because, you don't have to worry about, you don't even have to address the 1 gig of RAM at that point. So, but this is where we sit. So we have this situation where we went from highly segmented consoles in the 5th and 6th generation, and all the way up to 8th generation if you count Wii U, and now these other consoles are like, can we just have a lot of main memory and an SSD? I don't know. I don't know how everybody feels about that, but I guess I can kind of judge based on how everybody feels here. There's a lot of chatter going on in chat. I appreciate y'all being active. Chanel says, does loading get affected by the game being on disk, cartridge, or downloading the game? Loading isn't going to be affected mainly by the way the game was made. Yeah. So whether you have a game, let's say you hacked the GameCube, right? And you ran the entire game off an SD card, or you had some type of internal drive. When you play Metroid Prime, you're still going to have to wait when you run to a door too fast, because that's how the game was written. So it really depends on what game you're playing and what you're doing. And when you're talking about a console per se, because it's a closed system, they're going to design level loads based around what benefits that hardware specifically, especially if it was designed like older systems. These newer systems, maybe not so much, because it appears that for the most part, they're just like, these are just going to be baby PCs, because nobody writes to the metal anymore. Everybody's, how can we make this as high level as possible so we can just add tools on top of it that drills down and does all the work and writes the ones and zeros for us. So that appears to be the way things are going. It's not really going to matter. It's going to depend on how the game was made. I will say, installs will definitely determine whether the game is being installed from a disk cartridge or a downloading. Obviously, a cartridge, I would imagine, would be a lot faster than trying to install it from a disk. And downloading the game should be insanely faster, depending on your internet bandwidth. But it should be insanely faster to install once it is downloaded. That you'll be able to run that game because it's just locally there on your storage, and half of it's installed into memory as it's installing anyway. So I would imagine the last to be insanely fast, provided the download is already done. And the cartridge itself will be the second fastest, and the disc, if you're talking disc with a C and not a K, to be the slowest here. Let's see here. Snap of a finger to load, and game I dig. Y'all having a good little chat here, back and forth. We're talking about what the consoles being hard to work with and all that. So yeah, it's pretty much it. And yeah, I think this is probably the good comment. When I was talking earlier, I saw Andre posted this. Yeah, you're basically you're risking a financial collapse if the game is bad. So that's one of those things where I think that's what these other studios fear, and that's the one thing that Nintendo doesn't fear. So they want to make sure that if for whatever reason, if they screw up, they can always just say, oh, well, let's just do a PC port real quick and see if we can recoup all the money we spent.
Which is basically what they're doing now anyway.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, there isn't enough data for us to determine if that's even fruitful. It just appears to be the popular thing they're doing right now. I'm not really seeing anything on my end to see whether or not, hey, is this stuff staying on Steam? Like, is it staying in the top 10 every week? Or like, I can't really.
And you can't really say Epic or Steam, because they always have those sales, and those sales, when those sales drop, when Steam dropped their stealth summer sale, them numbers gonna be inflated because people spend away. There was some games that was what, $2.
Yep.
That was like 60 the week before.
Yep. And
like,
they're just moving.
You can't really judge that. Not really, because is the developer getting a lot back from that? Probably not.
Yep.
I doubt they get 50% of that back.
And that's the thing. I think it's just they just assume that it'll be okay because the user base for PC is the largest ever. So they just assume that, hey, if we put it there, then eventually maybe over time we'll get enough user base to where we'll get enough people talking about the game to where at some point they'll buy it for full price and we'll get enough from our money back. So this is part of a discussion, but I think this is a good point. Said the other reason is the ports elsewhere are more difficult when your architecture is different. They could work more, but we all know, sadly, I don't even have to say the rest of this. We know where this is going. Yeah. But yeah, that's the goal. Yeah. If you have bespoke hardware that's different, I mean, you're at the end of the chopping block. Even if you're a popular system, you're at the end of a chopping block for somebody like Activision saying we need Call of Duty everywhere. It's just one
everywhere because Microsoft going like, we need that money.
Yeah, because Microsoft is willing to spend a check up front, and they're like, no, you're going to do it. And they're like, but the excuses Activision had were okay. Well, no, we're not taking those. Make it happen.
No. We actually have a good relationship with Nintendo, so you're going to do it.
Nintendo gamers are buying games.
Yeah.
You go where they're buying games, like full price even. Go there.
You're going to implement those motion controls. You're going to do it. And on top of that, if you keep pissing me off, you're going to make it crossplay.
Yep. Yeah, Ray put the good comment there too. And this is what I've been standing on this soapbox for a long time. I've been saying this for the longest time. Ever since the Xbox launched in 2001, I saw this coming.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, it's launching with the Ethernet port and a drive. There's going to be patches. Games are going to ship incomplete now. And we're going to end up getting games that are going to be more like PC games, where we're going to start getting alphas and betas releasing. And here we sit. Year of our Lord 2022. But
that's what gamers claim they want, though. That's what they say they want.
Yep.
Here's the
paying to play betas.
Here's the thing. Ever since Microsoft got in, stuff's been that way. Because and I've said this before, when it was Sony, Sega, Nintendo, everybody was eating.
And they were doing their own thing.
Yeah. Everybody, and nobody was complaining about, oh, well, we can't put this game here because no, they were just like, okay, if you got this game, then we're going to give you another game in the same universe, but it's going to be different. Because the example I always use is the Super NES and Sega Genesis. If I think Capcom did X-Men Mutant Apocalypse.
Yep.
I forgot who did the Sega Genesis, but they got X-Men Bloodlines.
Mm-hmm.
Same X-Men game, different. It's same X-Men characters, except I think the Genesis actually had Bishop and the Mutant Apocalypse had Psylocke. That's like one of the differences. Like they were different, but they were the same style of game.
The same thing with Mortal Kombat. Midway didn't do any of those console ports. That Shining Entertainment did the Super Nintendo version, and what was it? Sculpture Software did the Genesis version, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's different studio houses.
Mortal Kombat Mythologies, because they had other people doing those.
Yeah. So that was a thing where, and that was a good time in gaming, because you had these B team studios that were really good with a specific set of hardware. So they would go and pitch publishers and say, "Hey, look, we want you to publish our game over here, but we know you don't trust us. You don't know if it's going to sell. But you got this project over here you're trying to do. You're trying to port Mortal Kombat. Well, we're really good at this hardware. We're making our game for it. So if we port this game for you to this hardware we really know really well, possibly could you pitch in and maybe help us build the game we're working on for it?" And then that's kind of how those drug deals happened back then. And that's how you ended up getting studios like the studios that work for EA now, like Tiburon back then, how they were, because Tiburon specialized on Nintendo hardware at one point in time. And then they go back and forth, and EA is like, yeah, because we're not building nothing for that. Not our sports game. Go ahead and port that stuff over there, and then we'll pay you and go from there. And then you have other on the opposite side of the coin, you have people that are really good at porting stuff to Genesis or Game Boy or whatever. And Midway and I guess back then it wasn't Midway. Who was their parent company then at the time? It wasn't. I guess I was doing the majority. That was paying for the majority of everything, because Midway wasn't big enough yet. It was. I'm trying to think who
it wasn't Warner Bros. Warner Bros. Bought that company.
It wasn't Warner Brothers yet. Activision. Was it Activision? Yes, it was Activision.
It was Activision.
So
whatever, they bought like a bunch of the licenses off of Activision.
Yep.
That's what Warner Bros. went and did.
So they cut the check for those different versions of that franchise to be on everything. So and they just had all kind of different port houses to do different things for different platforms, because you couldn't just there was no one engine to work on Game Boy, Game Gear, Genesis, and Super Nintendo. Teams. Yep. And you couldn't take a Super Nintendo back then, and this is the foolishness that we have right now. You couldn't take a Super Nintendo engine, put it on Genesis, and then say the Genesis is not strong enough to handle it. Or then take a Genesis engine and put it on the Super Nintendo and it doesn't work, and say, oh, well, the Super Nintendo isn't strong enough for it to handle it. Like, they're completely different. Like, you'd be surprised if the code even ran. Like, if anything even compiled at all. Like,
to be fair, the code should never have run.
No, because they're completely different.
They're completely different. If the code ran, that means somebody messed up.
So, like, the fact that this is a thing now, like, it's just kind of funny to me to see, the back and forth and the Twitter wars over this kind of foolishness. Well, it couldn't run this. No, games don't run. That was the video that I didn't finish making. Like, games don't run. People build them for certain hardware. Games run on PC.
Yeah.
Because PC hasn't changed over all this time. You adapt and build a game for a certain piece of hardware. So that's just the thing that I think most people should understand. Which is this other that's the other comment there. If they can't drag and drop a game from one system to another, it's too much work. That appears to be the thing now.
I mean, that's true. I mean, that's not a lie.
Yeah.
I mean, ever since like stuff went to object oriented and you don't have to actually code.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, we don't have to do it anymore. We can just make sure this stuff kind of works and go from here. A lot more back and forth here. We got Moto Monario got a question. He says, "Hey, he's sorry for being off topic, but have you heard this quantum TV guy? He's a Twitter widows doesn't want to debate. That's pretty much all of them for the most part. Like I've only gotten like 1 or 2 people to actually come on here so we can actually talk about see what they're talking about. Yeah, and they don't want that smoke. I guess go figure. Like, cause all I'm gonna do is just, hey, where you get that from? Oh, okay. So like, how does this logic work for you? And we'll go from there. Either we agree, disagree, or what have you. And facts are usually somewhere in the middle anyway. So. Andre clarified. He said he was meaning using the DDR2 RAM like EDRAM versus the way utilization of SSDs is happening. Yes, because it would work. Yes, no. I guess what threw me off was like the difference between EDRAM and DDR2 is very significant. But yes, you could essentially use it as a fast cache, and then that way you'd be able to. Load that was basically what we're saying at the beginning. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I don't know. This is pretty much how I kind of feel about it. Like, it's just this has to be the way forward for them. This has to be why they're doing this. I don't see any other reason. And so obviously I'm going to guess first here. Sony has really bad internal how can I say this? Internal teams, and they leak out stuff all the time, or they have really bad paperwork that they give to third parties when they pitch them and tell them what their new system is. Because then they're just going to go to they're just going to go to Microsoft and they're going to go to Nintendo and say, hey, this is what they're working on.
Well, here's my thing about the whole leak stuff. Unless somebody get fired, there was no leak.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes.
So it's either intentionally leaked or they didn't do their paperwork good enough to where the third parties could get away with
Because like if something is really leaked, you will see people get fired. You will hear about people getting fired.
Yeah.
If something is leaked and then nobody ever gets fired, nothing comes down. That's because somebody told them to do it. Somebody would say, hey, look, put that. I don't know if this is going to sell. Put it out.
Yep.
But if something comes out, that's how you know if it's a real leak or not. Like, if somebody say something and the next day they fired or the same day they fired, that wasn't supposed to come out. That was a real leak. If a leak happens, but nobody can ever find the person who did it, or nobody can ever... That was orders. Somebody got ordered to, hey, take this to your contact at the New York Post or Washington Post or whatever. Take this to your contact at IGN and just slide this under their door.
Yeah,
trying to figure out what's going to happen.
We need to gauge this interest and see what happens and go from there. Which
perfect example would be if for some reason it leaked that Nintendo was working on Diddy Kong Racing 3, but nobody got fired. That means somebody from Nintendo like, look, we don't know if this is gonna sell or not. Just
shop this to the people.
Yeah, shop this out.
Yeah, that's.
But an example of it not working was that example I gave gave Sunday when dude blurted out what he did on that podcast. And he got fired that same day.
Yep. Like, you gotta go. We done with you, bro.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Man, look, man. If y'all don't stop, y'all over here cursing my chat. Like, my chat is now cursed because y'all are mentioning UMDs. What is wrong with y'all, man? Like, y'all know that laser don't work, man. Don't mention UMD. I'm not even gonna highlight that comment. Like,
the PSP was a lovely system. It just whew.
Man, that UMD motor was gone. Like, and I'm like, I should fix this PSP. And then I watched all the videos of everybody else having the same problem. I'm like, I'm not gonna fix this.
You're not gonna do it.
I'm gonna hack this PSP.
Now to be fair though, the Vita was loved. I like the Vita. I just wish they would have supported it.
Yeah, they
wish they would have supported it.
It's almost like they didn't want to support it. Like, they wanted it to die.
They did it to try to cut into sales, to try to cut into the handheld. I'm like, dude, if you gonna cut into the handheld, you gotta have your first party lineup on point. Because the only reason why Nintendo always kept winning at it because they had the first party lineup to support it. If anytime they sales started tanking, what did they do? Drop a Pokemon,
Drop games.
drop a Mario, drop a 2D Mario. Next thing you know, everybody in love again.
Yep. This was part of when we were talking before. We were talking about the ports. These are really good examples, like Tiny Toons,
Aladdin, Lion King, all them. Yeah,
Hurricane, all those. Yeah, those are real good examples.
The TMNT games.
Yep.
Super NES got Turtles in Time. I think Sega got what was it, Hyperstone Heist.
Yep. I specifically remember Valis and definitely Rocket Knight. Those ended up being, you had to, and I think Arrow the Acrobat too. I don't think that game was identical on both platforms.
No, it wasn't.
And then was there a Nemo on Genesis? I know there was one on NES, but I think there was a Nemo on Genesis as well. Little Nemo. Dream Master.
I can't remember.
I'm just trying to think about, and definitely Battletoads too. So it's just, and now those are all rare though. But rare is a different breed where these guys reverse engineered every platform that came out, so they knew how to put everything everywhere. They're a little bit different.
The Stamper Brothers.
They're a little bit different. Like they're like, hey, we started programming for the Amiga, and then you're like, oh, you're those guys, okay. This is the whole thing. So yeah, that's just the whole thing. So the people, Trinell, he didn't know that UMD drained battery. Like, man, that thing drained your whole system. Like it drained life from your system. The PSP was not built for that motor for whatever reason.
I don't think Sony thought that through.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think their idea was, if we make a handheld that looks better than what Nintendo's putting out, then we'll win. And that just didn't happen. It didn't happen like that. They had some cool games. They had some real cool games.
They wanted to do
they put on there too, but
they wanted to do what Final Fantasy VII did for Nintendo as far as consoles. They're like, we could do that again on the portable side, and
you can't. And to be fair, like Final Fantasy VII, as good as it was back then, when Ocarina of Time dropped, people forgot about it.
Yep.
I remember reading comics, and Sony took out full page ads, basically trying to go at Zelda, and I'm like, are y'all stupid? And Ocarina dropped, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, that was okay. Dark Cloud was supposed to be the Zelda killer.
Yeah, that didn't. You know how many Zelda killers they were supposed to be?
I mean, why not just say you're a Zelda-like game? That's what they did with Guardian Legend. They're just like, hey, we're a Zelda-like game. Like, you don't have to like go at like.
Yeah, because you're not going. That brand has been established.
Yep.
The brand is established. It's like going at Halo. You're not going to do that. Even with the problems that Halo has now, you're still not going to do that because the brand is established.
Yep.
Just don't do it. Like, I'm gonna come for Pokemon's head. Oh, really?
Nah, it's not happening.
Oh, really?
It's not happening. And Pokemon is so established now. There's no, like, you're talking, what is it, 30 years worth of history there. Like, that's 30 years worth of charm. You're not going to be able to take that away.
You're not beating them
from hearts and minds. It's not going to happen.
I'm like, all these grown folks putting their kids on punishment so they can play their Pokemon game.
That's kind of where I'm at with Mono Mario's comment here. He's Monato Mario, excuse me. I don't know why I said it in reverse. I guess I got Xenoblade on the brain. But he said, do you think Steam Deck is available? Once it's available on retail worldwide, would it be considered an ultimate JRPG machine even more than Switch?
Nope.
And my answer to that is
nope.
Microsoft exists and the Xbox exists. And they tried really hard in Japan, both with the original Xbox to the point where they developed a whole nother controller other than the Duke, just for them. And 360 had a gigantic launch in Japan. They had the girl standing up there holding the console, waiting for people to go buy them and all that. They had a whole bunch of Japanese style games. They bought, well, they didn't buy, but they had significant deals with Japanese studios to port games like Blue Dragon and whatnot, to build games like Blue Dragon for 360, and it didn't do anything.
Nothing.
And Valve isn't trying to work those deals. They're not trying to fly to Japan and do anything like that to court people.
Why would they?
There's no reason.
Yeah, there's no reason. They know better. I hate to be that guy, but they know better.
Yeah. And it's not going to work. And when I say Microsoft is literally the biggest name in the world with regards to something like this, everybody in Japan knows who Microsoft is. I'm pretty sure nobody in Japan really knows who Valve is. Not like that.
Yeah, not like that. Unless they play Half-Life and they're waiting for Half-Life 3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's
the other thing too is like as far as JRPGs are concerned, or the RPG market anyway, like it's still. I would say is it fair to say that the RPG market is still ruled by Japan?
I think it always has been, and Sony's screwing up because they're kind of giving it to Nintendo. They don't. They
act like they don't want it. They act like they don't want it.
Yeah. And that's
well, I know they don't want Square Enix because Square Enix is hemorrhaging money. I know they don't want that.
Yeah. Nobody wants to pay their bills with their luminous engine that can't keep the lights on.
I'm sitting here thinking because I'm like, who would actually buy them? I'm like, I don't think anybody would buy them. That's too much debt.
Yep.
That's Square's best bet is to go back to what got them famous to begin with. Those HD 2D games. Do that.
Yep.
Make sure you make some money. And for some, and whatever you do, chill out with the Final Fantasy realistic graphics bullshit because that just is not working.
That's just what they do. This is the biggest. Okay, so this is the biggest point I want to see right here. So, Game Idea got posted. He said, "I know they use them for time efficiency, but that also means they don't go through the engines to remove code that their games don't use, which would cut down on data bloating." Yep. I think that's the other issue. Why do you need these fast SSDs to begin with? Because you need to move a large amount of data. Why do you need to move a large amount of data? Can you just have cleaner code? You have smarter hardware now that handles vast amounts of data at any given point in time. You have systems now and you have programs in place now where you don't even have to create assets. You can create portions of assets and it'll create new ones out of a freaking program. It'll create an algorithm to create new assets for you, basically procedural to generate new assets for you on the fly for you. So why would you even need to create brand new huge 4 GB assets to make as part of your game when you don't have to? That's one of those things. You can make clean code that's actually lower in file size and have your more powerful hardware, your more high scalable engines do the rest of the work. You got Unreal Engine 5 now that will literally draw rocks for you. Yep. Like, why do you then need to say, hey, look, for our Assassin's Creed team, we flew all over the world to go photo rocks and lion's fur and all this to put into our game? Like, it's already sampled for you and lightweight inside of the engine. These are the things that we talk about. And it's kind of frustrating because they're building band-aids for a problem that's been internal for the longest period of time. The issue starts with the build of the game, and since we no longer have developers anymore that write to the metal or look at the hardware and then say, hey, look, this is a problem we need to solve. Let's figure out how we're going to do this. And they're like, hey, we solved this problem this way. That's kind of neat. Let's take advantage of that. That's just not a thing anymore. So that's a bit of the issue anyway. So that's why we're seeing these quote unquote new buzzwords. They're band-aids to cover up issues that are deeper than a lot of what the problems that these quote unquote developers are talking about. So Lucilla, what's going on? Appreciate you for stopping by. And he mentioned Castlevania Bloodlines also is one of the ports as well. It's what Dracula X, I guess is.
Yeah, Dracula X.
Yeah,
with the best first stage soundtrack ever, but then just falls.
Yep. I do agree with this. Star Fox Adventures is still. I think that game was ahead of its time.
Design, man.
Yeah.
I think me and Jack said it, like that game, Wind Waker, still look good to this day. And that's SD GameCube. I'm not even talking about the Wind Waker HD. Wind Waker HD, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. That's a beautiful game, but as far as visually is concerned,
no, it didn't need it
on the GameCube.
Visuals were timeless. You're good already.
Yeah. So, but you want to know what don't look all that great? Twilight Princess.
Yep.
That's why I'm glad they stuck to their guns on the sales chat. I'm like, yeah, just stick to it. Find a happy medium and stick to it, because that's gonna last longer than realistic graphics and all that. Like that just works.
For that reason, I was looking through some stuff earlier today, because a lot of times I say this stuff and I talk about how some things were shitted on way back when, and people were like, no, they weren't. You're just making that up, kind of situation.
They were.
Yeah, so I went and screenshotted some stuff, and in the middle of me screenshotting some stuff, I came across a couple of EGM reviews. A lot of people back then, which is crazy, they gave Twilight Princess perfect scores, and I'm like, and then Wind Waker, y'all chose to avoid doing that, and I'm like
the plague.
And Twilight Princess is a good game. It is a really good game. Any game where I can get the downward thrust, I'm gonna I'm gonna approve that game. But yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know how to say, just because you got the thing that you were begging for and you were mad about because of Wind Waker doesn't mean you then immediately run and go give that a 10. That's just kind of.
And the funny thing about it is, if you go ask people now, majority of people will tell you Wind Waker was the better game story-wise.
Yep.
Because I don't know how they got away with half the stuff they got away with in Wind Waker with some of the stuff that they were doing. They got dark real quick.
I loved it. I love the irony that, hey, look at this quote unquote cartoony kiddie game that was literally the darkest in the series.
Yeah.
That was pretty, it got pretty dark in that game.
Spoiler alert for a 20-plus-year-old game. The dude drowned at the end.
Oh yeah, of course.
Dude drowned himself at the end.
Yes.
Ganon got stuck in the head, hilt deep with the Master Sword.
Yep.
And they Link was like this. Dude chose to drown.
We're not dragging Twilight Princess. We're dragging the people that were trying to talk shit about Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Because you can't go and call this game perfect and then you want to try your best to give Wind Waker a 6. Like you just can't, in the same breath, you just can't do that. It's not a thing.
You can't. And I'm talking about what I'm talking about is like, so don't get me wrong, I like Twilight Princess, but I like Twilight Princess for a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as you looking on GameCube, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, no, Wind Waker's visuals are way better. Twilight Princess visuals is too hazy. Now, the HD version, they cleaned a lot of that up. So I'm not gonna. I understand, but at the same time, I'm just saying, as a Zelda maniac,
yeah,
Wind Waker is better than Twilight Princess, in my opinion, from a story perspective. Now,
more material and more background.
Now, I will say this: Twilight Princess has the moments, like when they straight up lifted that whole Two Towers War scene.
Yeah,
when you had to go save Colin during that riding sequence, that was fire. The fighting Bobbin on the Elden Bridge, that was fire.
Yeah,
and
good moments.
Sakurai's a fool for putting that in Smash.
Yeah.
So they had like the moments, but I still think my best moment in any Legend of Zelda game is Skyward Sword, the Gauntlet Run to Demise.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then just Demise too. Like and they're like, hey, we weren't playing when we said we could use indirect texturing and shading to make really cool effects. Even with we added stuff. We added stuff to Flipper. Look at it. It's great. And I'm like, oh, all right, cool. All right, that's wonderful. Y'all doing things over here. That's just interesting. Just slowly but surely telling everybody, hey, this standard definition machine could have been really great if you guys try it like we did. And
Iwata told everybody in 06 at GDC, either 05 or 06 at GDC, that the way things were going was not sustainable.
No,
and nobody
diminishing returns, man.
Yeah, nobody listened to him. He basically said like we never tapped out the 6th gen, which was true.
Tapping out the 6th gen would have been ray tracing in 480p.
Yeah, but
we never got to that.
Yeah, and once the HD era came, and then you started getting more and more investors that had nothing to do with gaming, did not like gaming, didn't care. They just wanted to get their yacht.
Yep.
Gaming's been going downhill ever since. So, and yes, Game Idea Guy Demise should be returning. Yes. I hope he's returning because I need to. There's a couple people who I had a theory about something about Ganondorf, and they mad at me because I said it. I'm like, did y'all not play Skyward Sword? Like, you do realize Ganondorf ain't the bad guy, right?
Yeah, that was probably the best thing, and that's what Chanel said. He and now I think that was the goal. Here, you're supposed to feel bad for him
because he's a king, and you find out that the Highlands ain't this loving people that you think they are. Some of them, some racist
got problems.
Yeah,
I mean, you saw the problems when you looked at some of the memories that Zelda had in Breath of the Wild too.
Yeah,
like they weren't getting along. They were having internal issues. Like it was not exactly all peaceful. And
you read the diaries too in Breath of the Wild. Oh, bro, you're like, what the? Yeah,
people having ulterior motives against the king. Like, bro,
yeah. So,
bro, that game.
That it gets deep when it wants to. I think the thing that I like about it is the fact that you have to pay attention to get it. It's the same thing with Metroid. If you don't pay attention, you ain't gonna get the story. You're not. But if you pay attention, that's why a lot of people don't understand Metroid Prime 1 and 2. They didn't pay attention to it.
Exactly.
And so when somebody who's paid attention and scanned 95% of the stuff in the game starts telling you stuff from the lore, you're like, that ain't true. You're like, no, that is true because they explained it. Then they go play Dread and they confirm it, essentially.
Like, you know what I noticed though? Like I was looking up some footage for Metro Prime Trilogy, right? So somebody was playing through, they were doing a playthrough, and they're playing Metro Prime 1 on Trilogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started noticing stuff. Like you can notice some of these details without reading the scans. And so like
and then the first one and the third one you can do that. The second one you couldn't do that.
So, but I'm just saying, like in the game they put it in there. You don't notice it because you're still playing for the first time, so you don't understand what's happening. But knowing what you read already and going back to look through again, you start to see stuff. You're like, hey, wait, they're running away from me.
Yeah,
they're not. And when they're shocked and they see you, they're shooting and evading you.
Yeah, they're shooting and trying to run.
Only the bosses are really, really trying to come at you like that.
And actually, it's only one real boss that's actually trying to really come at you, and that's the Omega Pirate.
Yeah,
and because when you play through one, like even when you're in the frigate at the first beginning, they're like, dude, the hatchling is here. The hatchling is. That's why all the stuff you're reading on the monitors, the hatchling is here. They trying to destroy that ship and get the hell out.
And so when I'm reading it for the first time, you say hatchling, I thought you were talking about the first parasite you saw.
No.
That you first. No, they were talking about you, bro. The whole time. It's just.
That's why a lot of stuff in Dread makes sense. But that's another reason why if they ever tried to like really. The best way to do Metroid, if you're going to try to like bring it to like other media, would be to animate it and make it an anime because the stuff that happens in her backstory is gonna have to come with a trigger warning.
Yeah,
because she was 5 when they tried to kill her.
She got issues.
Yeah, and issues. Like most of the stuff she has severe PTSD, but she doesn't like her PTSD turns her into Frank Castle, and which to the point where the space pirates all know about her, and they are terrified.
Man, Metroid Dread was amazing. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah,
Metroid Dread was amazing. That chick turned around and she's like, I speak Chozo.
Hashtag Raven Beak for Smash. But that's why I was like, I remember talking. I think I was telling Andre that like they should have in Breath of the Wild, Link should talk, but he should only speak Hylian the whole time. Everybody else speak English or whatever their language is, but he should speak Hylian the whole time just to mess with people.
Yep.
Just to mess with people. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, so I see this. There's a little back and forth here, but the Dark Angels posting says, "Do you think that's part of the reason why Elden Ring is being so overly praised because it looks like the gritty looking Zelda game they wanted?" And
That and because Game of Thrones dude wrote it. Martin wrote it. George R. Martin wrote it. So I think that's why, kind of. But at the same time,
they're trying to push it.
Yeah, when people talk about it, I'm like, you do the same. You know, the same thing happens to you in Xenoblade. You know, the same thing happens to you in Monster Hunter, right? Like you run into stuff that's in Xenoblade. Yeah, Xenoblade do it to an extent where you on Gormont, and if you walk around there the wrong time of day, you gonna walk into a Tyrannosaurus Rex and you level 3, and they 99.
And you're done.
So yeah, it's one of those situations where I think it's a mix of that. But I'm not going. My thing is, if I haven't played Elden Ring, so I can't say it's bad or not. But
you played a Souls game though.
Yeah, I played a Souls game though, and
you're not missing.
I always laugh when I hear people say how hard it is.
You can jump.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about Souls, because you know I have no problem telling my age. I'm 41, so I've played games that were way harder than Souls.
Yeah,
Contra 3 to Alien Wars.
Yes.
Wolverine,
Ninja
Adamantium Rage.
Yeah,
Adamantium Rage.
Spider-Man, X-Men, like
yeah. What's the other one that was hard? That was the Sky. It wasn't Maximum Carnage.
Hell, I say Bart versus the World and
Bart versus the World. The Punisher side scroll, the one with Nick Fury. That one was I'm like, dude, I've played hard. I played hard games. I played games that were for the most part broken. Superman 64.
Yep.
But I mean, it's one of those situations. Once you learn how to play, you learn how to play. So I mean, it's not. I would never tell somebody just get good because I don't.
We've been doing that.
You just have to. Once you get used to it, you get used to it. But yeah, I think like one of those situations depends on if you ever played. If you've never played a game like Xenoblade or a game like Monster Hunter, and you go into Elden Ring, I can see you saying, "Oh, this is the best thing ever." You run into this crazy monster that is 20 feet tall. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Yep. I've done that already.
Yeah, that's what Ray trolling in the chat. He says Samus destroyed Dark Chicken.
Dark Chicken.
That's amazing.
That's too funny and true, but too funny.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, it's a thing, and I'm not gonna knock it because I'm still leveling up in Elden Ring right now. But it's more of the same for me because I've played all the other Souls games. So it's not really, it's just, hey, you have a little bit more freedom. You can kind of choose your own adventure type situation. And they kind of Xenobladed it up.
And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
No, nothing wrong with that.
Wrong with that, by the way. I mean,
everything's beatable if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just you never know what you're doing because you just run up on something and it fucking smokes you, which is basically what Xenoblade is all about anyway. Yeah. So I don't think it's gonna be bad.
The funny thing about Xenoblade though, you can be walking along. Let's just say for your particular gameplay that day, you just said, you know what, I'm just gonna go out and grind and level up a little bit. And you walk into that one side of the area at 7:00 at night, and it's all level 80s, and you at level 30. You might want to moonwalk yourself out of that situation and go to where you can find a time change and change them at the daytime so you can fight people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Trinell trolling. He said, were there true HD games on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3? Just like there were some 1080i games on the OG Xbox, I guess.
Let's just say this. What do you think is true HD? Because some people say 720 is true HD. So what do you think is true? And at the time when the PS3 and 360 came out, all those HD TVs that people were getting, most of them only went to 720.
Yeah, 720 and 1080i. Yeah. So you were upscaling.
Yeah, so it's one of those situations. It just depends on what you think was HD. Just judging by the amount of remasters you got when the PS4 dropped that first year,
I would say
no. I would say no. There were no true HD games.
That promise we made, we weren't able to fulfill that promise. So we'll try again another generation. That's just so weird to me. And I don't know, man. I don't know. Shorty, y'all have any questions? We can go ahead and start closing this out. But my whole thing with this is, if this is the future of how games are going to go, Nintendo's going to continue to be the outlier every single time, because they're going to continue to have bespoke hardware. Because they refuse to be in on, we heard Sony got this, let's try to make it too. They're not going to do that. If there happens to be hardware where all three are the same in any generation, it's because Sony or Microsoft got word of what Nintendo was doing. It's not gonna be the other way around. And that just means that if you have a PC going forward, will be almost no need for Xbox or PlayStation, especially since the majority of their games for their subscription services will also work on PC. So it's kind of getting to that point where I guess Nintendo and PC, and you're fine. Then you'll have access to everything for the most part.
Well, I think a lot of people are on there already anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, for the most part, it's a lot. It's a lot of switching PC people.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of people that own every platform too, or at least two or more.
At least two or more, yeah.
Yeah, kind of so they can go back and forth, and they're like, this kind of running like trash on Xbox. Let me put it on the PC, whatever, and then they'll play it on Switch on the go or whatever. But it's just one of those things where they completely left what made being a console worthwhile. Like, it's not, the whole point is it's different, and it does just this one thing really good. As soon as you turn it into a PC, now you've got the whole host of problems that developing on PC has. I mean, not the different configurations, obviously, but the same issues as far as runtime, you being able to do certain actions faster or what have you. That means you just have to make a really, really good software development kit. You have to make a really, really good set of firmware to deal with all this, instead of having bespoke hardware that either tells you yes or no. So now it's just like, here's this giant pool of whatever you want it to be, general purpose stuff, go. And everybody just runs engines on it, and they're like, oh, that's not working good, so I guess it's the hardware's fault. On to the next platform. And that's what it's going to end up being, the way things are going, instead of, developers actually catering to the hardware. Optimization is going to be, let's just make the code run. It's never going to be making sure things run really well.
Like it's supposed to be.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. So going forward, that's kind of where we are. Ray just asked another question here. Let's see what he has here. I appreciate you. If I can highlight your question, I can't really see. It's kind of all over the place. He says, assuming Nintendo will stick to cartridges, which is a big question, do you think it's likely that the Switch's successor will be backwards compatible? I would say definitely, if they have cartridges, they'll be backwards compatible. The question is, will they stick with cartridges? Because we at this point, we're kind of at a little limit with regards to extra ROM as far as what size it can be. Yeah. So if you want bigger games,
they're gonna have to ditch it.
Yeah, 128 gig cartridges, I don't see those coming. Right, no time soon.
I mean, the 64s have gotten cheaper though. The 64s have gotten cheaper. But the 128s, 512s, I've seen 128, 512, and then terabyte. They don't even go in between that. Like, it's pretty much.
And that's going to be exorbitantly expensive.
Yeah,
for those sizes.
And the thing about Nintendo is they've said that in their mission statement. They don't want to charge people a price that families can't afford.
Yep.
So they're not going to do it. And
the
way people
Switch successor at 500,
and the way people complain about wanting physical, I'm like, dude, at some point, people just gonna have to understand, like, a lot of these games are gonna come online because that's what people swear they want. I don't want games as a service. I don't, but I get drowned out when I say that.
I mean, especially with these games getting this big, like half the game might have to sit on the server.
Yeah. And server maintenance costs a lot of money. That's why I be laughing when people be getting mad when they talk about, Sony's shutting down this server. Why? I still play. Dude, you're playing a server from like 2001. Do you know how much that costs to maintain?
Yep.
And secure? Because you don't want your information getting out there, right?
So now you gotta pay.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like the Wii U eShop. Guess what? It's gonna, at some point, it was gonna go away. 3DS too, because it's sitting on the server. And guess what? They still have to pay for it and keep it secure, because the second somebody hacks their system and gets your credit card information, guess what you finna try to do? Lawsuit.
Yeah.
And stuff. At some point in time, when you work in IT and you work with technology, you're gonna understand that it comes a time where, you might love Windows XP, you may love Windows 8. It's gonna come a time where they can't patch it no more.
Yep.
And you're gonna have to go to another architecture. That's just what it is.
When they give you that end of life date, they usually don't budge from it.
Yeah.
You gotta be a pretty big customer for them to extend it.
The only time I've seen them budge was when the United States government had some systems that had to use XP, and they finally got those moved off of those systems. That's the only time I saw Microsoft do it, and they only did it for those.
XP had a long shelf life for that reason too.
It was too long. But the only people they were doing providing patches for was U.S. government. They weren't providing patches for nobody else. So if you were a school system and you still had a couple of XP machines, because that's how you was running certain, let's just say certain programs. Say you were doing stuff for like SCADA or whatever, and you were running that, they didn't care. Get it off of there and put it on 8 or 7. We don't care, but you're gonna move it off because we're not gonna be held responsible. Because I remember getting those emails. We're not gonna be held responsible if you keep XP past this date. So when it's same thing when it comes to servers. These servers are on server. What are we on now? Our
server 20. Well, is it 2019 or is it 2021? I'm not sure which version Microsoft right now.
Well, let's just say for shits and giggles, because when did we come out? 2012. We
came out in 2012. So
let's just say it's on server R2. Let's say it's on server R2. At some point, they were gonna have to move it anyway. And if I'm Nintendo, I'm not Microsoft. I don't have server farms on deck where I can just move everything over. I'm gonna have to shut that stuff off.
And that was before cloud, where everything was virtualized. That it was physical machines in place, running just one OS, which is insane when you think about it in retrospect. Yeah, so that's why your eShops are closing on 3DS and Wii U. They were built back in 2011. Yep. What did you think was going to happen? Of course, they were going to shut them down, because now everything's, like you said, everything's going to cloud. And thankfully, they don't get off Amazon and go to Azure, which actually makes sense for both Sony and Microsoft. For Sony and Nintendo, everybody be on the same thing. So when something does happen, Microsoft can just fix it. Because whether you love them or not, Microsoft is a computer company. That's what they do best. Yep. So I know a lot of Sony people be complaining when their online goes down. Well, guess what? If they're on Azure, when it goes down, I promise you to be back up in 48 hours as opposed to a week. Yeah, they would stick to the SLA for sure, because they want to charge. They want to charge per node the license agreement. So, and they gonna make. And Microsoft, what does Microsoft love more than anything else? Money, for sure. So for sure, you best believe they're gonna make sure they end of the bargain gonna be upheld. Yep, it is what it is. So Dark Angel posted again. He said Nintendo will use what Nvidia has for a while, the same way they were arguing before that. That may be true. We do know, based on leaks, obviously they're still sticking with Nvidia for now. Whatever successor they have right now. But all that's up in the air depending on basically money. Yeah, ain't that the safe bet, since this chip shortage might be around a little bit longer than originally anticipated? Yep, and NVIDIA's hard at work on whatever they're
Yeah.
doing right now, whatever new SDK they're building right now.
And if you are going to stay with that, because I think Nintendo probably will stay with this like Switch design. No, I don't want to say design, but this Switch style at least one more generation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see why they would drop their deal with NVIDIA. Why would you?
Yeah, but Nintendo's so wild though. That company is so crazy.
Yeah,
I don't think I would be surprised if they dropped NVIDIA and did something completely different. Like, it still wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if they went to Apple and said, "Hey, we want to use one of your chips for one generation," and then go back to NVIDIA. Like, because Nintendo just does weird shit.
They made Splatoon. That should tell you everything you need to know about that company. They made Splatoon. Anything else? They made Splatoon.
And it's a great shooter. And it's called Splatoon.
Yeah.
That just tell you everything. I think this is a good take, though. He said, "Isn't the whole hardware hustle the biggest reason to want cloud?" Isn't that where they want to point everybody anyway?
And that's what they're trying to do. Well, you didn't fall for the DMCA stuff, so
yeah. Even though Don Matrick ended up being right at the end of the day, I think he was like 10 years too early.
Well,
now everything is.
He didn't know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
If he knew how to talk to people would have went with it. The problem is
Xbox 360 if you don't want DRM. Okay.
You can't say that to somebody. You can't say that to somebody that's deployed that asked you a question because they're on deployment and they want to know, hey, if I get this, will I be able to, with my folks back home? You can't say that, dude. Have some damn tact.
That was just a bad way.
Yeah,
that was a bad.
And the sad thing about it was the interviewer person tried to give him a way out to let him explain. He just reiterated. I'm like, oh, this dude trying to get fired.
Yeah.
Oh, this dude he's tired of being there. He's trying to get fired.
He's like, let me find me another golden parachute to go somewhere else.
Oh, Zynga, y'all hiring?
Yep. And they were ready. It's funny how that works. Yeah, and I guess people should understand that too. Like CEOs, it's a giant. How can I say this? It's a giant wheel. If you will, if you just look at any CEO's job history, typically speaking, they go from being CEO here to CEO over there, VP over here, CEO over here, and they just go back and forth. They rotate, and we're talking wildly different disciplines. Like you go from being like Reggie, he was at like Nike or something. I forget where he was at a shoe company, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, you're over here at Nintendo, go!" Like, what? Who does that? But it's only the CEO thing. I don't know what it is. Once you become an executive, you just kind of walk around wherever you want. You don't even have to know anything about whatever the company is. Just you're here.
You're an executive. That's all we need to know. You're an executive.
Yeah.
You can learn it. We got other people that can do it for you while you learn.
If we don't have anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out. It's about we're almost at the 2-hour mark. I got 1:48 I'm looking at right now. But I appreciate y'all coming through to listen to this. I guess the only other thing I wanted to pose, I think one of the questions was still how Terminator just was talking about how do you go from the storage, the temporary storage portion to RAM, and vice versa, and what do you do when the system is off? The whole goal, you don't want anything happening while the system's off anyway. Mm-hmm. And what is your data set after that? Yeah, what is your data set after that in the slowest part of storage that you have in your system? So for Switch, it would be NAND. And then, when you turn the system back on, that DDR powers up, it lights up, and then you can move stuff across it again to go real fast. Mm-hmm. So the whole goal is to have manageable chunks to move your data back and forth, and it just goes through super fast because while you're waiting for it to sit in this funnel for a DDR or whatever, it's already being moved and executed at a faster rate on the other end. And that way you don't have to worry about, hey, let's copy all this data over super slow. Okay, now let's decompress all this data super slow. You can stream it over and have it decrypted and extracted in time. Basically like just in time processing kind of situation. So Dart Angel said, I'm a lady, by the way, see you around. Like, I mean, We appreciate you.
Appreciate
see you on the next ShadowCast. We will. I appreciate everybody coming
How
around.
about the podcast?
Oh yeah, yes, definitely hop on the Wingly podcast. Hop on the Stormcast. Make sure y'all watching Andre videos. Subscribe to him on Spotify and everything else because he posts really good content. So y'all make sure y'all follow all the normal guys here. I guess we'll get Jack doing something at some point, so y'all can subscribe to him.
Yeah, he's getting
his stuff together.
Webcam situation taken care of.
As soon as he gets situated, we can go ahead and push him towards y'all too. So we'll go from there. But you got anything you want to pip out for Sunday?
No, but I did just read before we went live. So we all know that there is no E3 this year, but Xbox and Bethesda will have a game showcase. So mark the calendars. Sunday, June 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, I mean, a.m., 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, June 12th. Xbox and Bethesda will have their game showcase. So I'm guessing that was going to be their E3, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to go on and do theirs because, once again, Microsoft has their own theater, so E3 don't matter to them because they do their stuff at their building anyway. So just mark your calendars if so you know that's when that's going down. I'm hoping Sony does something. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Nintendo's going to do their own direct or whatever. But that is Sunday, June 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So
for sure.
And Winging the Podcast, Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. One more thing. I'm currently not monitoring it right now, but I feel like I need to say this anyway. Get the likes up. Even after you close the video, get the likes up. Do something.
Yeah. And share it out. Share stuff out, man.
Like, subscribe to me if you haven't already. If you hate me, don't subscribe. But subscribe to them though. Subscribe to Jay.
And all these people.
Yeah.
Behind. Yeah.
You ain't gotta subscribe to me. Subscribe to them.
Yeah.
You go from there.
Yeah.
So
these guys.
Great talking about Elder Scrolls 6, man. No, we're not. We don't have time. It's so many games come out this year. We're not doing no more. So and then Andre with the shameless plug down there. We see you. All right. So he got his new video coming up. Y'all check it out on Saturday.
Yeah, X Zone episode 14 next Saturday at 7. Oh, and you know what? One more thing. I am gonna do 2 live streams tomorrow. One of them's gonna be for Switch Sports just to show the initial. That's probably gonna be in the morning, and I'm gonna do Monster Hunter Rise tomorrow night. So chat will be open. If you guys play, let me know. We'll probably try to drop some people in. So
awesome.
I got to finish a lot of that stuff before sunrise. So sunbreak get here. I got to finish it. So I have not finished it.
Y'all check me out. I'll try to do some more videos here and there. I still have to do a couple of Wii U videos, I guess, for the I got mine situation, and then I have some other videos that I want to put up as content later on. One of them was a topic that Nintendo Prime brought up, so I kind of want to bring that up and kind of chat with you guys and see what y'all think about it. But other than that, man, that's it. ShadowCast 47 is in the books. We out. Do you play games, have fun, or to impress other people?
Peace.